All right, so guys, what do you think? I think we can start with paint, right? One thing we could do before we get started here, I would like to soften up the pencil drawing because, so I'm gonna take my needle eraser, soften it up, and then because as I soften it up, it's going to be more pliable, softer. It will pick up the graphite a little bit better, and also it's not gonna be as harsh as when it's hard, because you can get cold and hard when it's been on your table all night, right? And also doing this, as you know, it mixes up, it moves the dirt outside the needle eraser inside, and that's cleaner, makes it cleaner, right? So now, once this is a little bit warmed up and pliable, right, more pliable, what we can do, we can flatten it up like this a little bit, and then go over gently, right? We don't want to disturb. We don't want to disturb the paper. Watercolor paper is so delicate. Sometimes makes me think of the sleeping dragon in the Lord of the Rings, right? Shh, quiet, right? Don't make too much noise. But you want to kind of soften it up because it's when we start painting, the graphite tend to be locked in by the watercolor paint, and it's something delicate as a flower. You might not want to have harsh graphite line. We just need enough to see a little bit of the original drawing, right? When I was doing scientific work, what I would do this, clean it up, and then take a harder pencil and redraw everything, which is a very, very thin line, just barely visible, so that the line was extremely precise, but very, very weak. So you would see it, but eventually would disappear, would become part of the work. I don't want to go through that because that would be a little bit time consuming, right? And we don't need to do that. That doesn't have to be. This doesn't have to be a work super scientific, but I can show you how to do it, right? Just with a little line here and there. Basically, now you would take a harder pencil, right? You do this. Now, at this point, I would go after all the little detail, like change it if I need to change it. And end up with a super clear line drawing. Super clear line drawing like that, right? But that's again, we don't need to do this now. We don't need to do this now. We have enough that we can see, and now we need to find out what color is that, right? So I mentioned before Cobalt Violet. So Cobalt Violet is really a color that you want to have in your palette, and it would be this one here, right? That's Cobalt Violet, and I can put it on the paper so we see the difference, we see what it looks like, and then we're gonna try to replicate that color with other colors, right? All right, so let's see. Actually, that doesn't look like Cobalt Violet, right? That looks like Permanent Rose or something like that. So do you have Alizarin Crimson? Maybe we can get away with Alizarin Crimson. So this is Alizarin Crimson, right? Let's see. Have a piece of paper, right? Separate piece of paper, because that is more violet. See that? But that is kind of pink, right? So it could be Alizarin Crimson. It could be Rose Madder. Rose Madder would probably be good too. It's more on the pink side, right, than that, right? So, I mean, cooler, right? So let's just for comparison, let's look at the Cobalt Violet, right? Actually, it's not bad. Cobalt Violet would be good for that. See that? The color there, right? So having Cobalt Violet, we could probably use it for that too. But now I need that to replicate that color. So, okay, so alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna try to put a little bit, tiny little bit of blue in there to see if it makes a difference. Alizarin crimson with a little bit of ultramarine blue. But so far, alizarin crimson is impervious. Actually, now look at that, that's not bad. I'm trying a little bit more, right? Alizarin crimson says, no, that's my color, I'm sticking to it. All right, too much blue now, too blue, right? So I'm gonna go back to alizarin crimson and see if I can keep it light, very light, right? To begin with. See, that's not bad, right? But this is actually, you know what? There's a little bit of violet in there. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, right? All right, I'm gonna go with a layer of this color here, of this alizarin crimson with a tiny little bit of ultramarine blue, right? There's a little bit of violet there, see that? And then see what happened, right? So I put some ultramarine blue in the alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna keep it very, very light, right? So the best friend of man is a dog, right? The best friend of watercolor is a piece of towel, right? So that way, if you make a mistake, you can just blot it right away, right? Or remember to control the amount of paint you have in your brush, right? Okay, so here, so now I'm using number 8. If you have a number 8 Kolinsky, it would be perfect for this because we are covering relatively big areas. And the number 8 Kolinsky, when it's new, it has a nice point. But you can imagine doing this stuff on ships, right? With the, I don't know, with the rollings. I don't think we're doing it with rolling ships, but must have been quite emotionally incredible experience to do, discovering things for the first time, right? Seeing people, right, coming at you with a little pirogue, a little boat, right, with rowing, and must have been incredible. I mean, I think probably Cook was later on was probably the first to use the chronometer for the compass for the latitude, right? I think it was the first one to use it. Before that, before they found a way of using the chronometer to find the latitude, they had no way of knowing where they would end up. So light washes, right? We start with light washes here because so that like that, see that light how light that is, right? I don't want to go darker than that. I need to put first an overall wash, considering also that, as you know, the watercolor dries lighter, right? So I'm gonna make it a little bit darker than I think it should be, and then as it dries up, it will get a little bit lighter, right? See that? Now, so now in this case in here, I'm painting, right? I'm painting wet on wet. See that? So painting wet on wet. See this area here is now that. But why am I putting it now wet on wet? Because I want this second layer to spread softly over the previous one. Makes sense? So if I do a layer like this, right? Imagine this is the first layer, and then I let it dry here, let it dry. When I put another layer here, I'm gonna have a sharp division between the two. I don't want a sharp division between the two. If I would want a sharp division, to soften this, I can still do it. Rinse the brush, right? Take off most of the water, and then go back in here like this, and soften that. So that you can soften, you can gradation. But you got to be careful to do this, that the brush, you don't want the brush to be too wet, because if the brush is too wet, the paint will move into that layer and create blooming, right? So it's a kind of a tricky thing. So let's put a layer in all the flowers, right? And then maybe we finish a few, and then we leave other ones less finished, so we see the stages of development of the flower, right? So also because this way we practice. So notice that in this area here, that I left that white, and because let me see, I left this white, but because there was a sharp line before, much sharper line before, what I did, I took the brush, I wetted it, rinsed it, and then took off most of the paint, and then I went here to challenge that sharp line, dissolving it a little bit, softening up, because see how soft that is in there, right? See how soft that is, right? But I will also work on dry brush there, because that looks like all dry brush to me, right? So now let's get to this one, yeah? As you have seen, I mean, later I can show you more images of the Bauer brothers, where they also included parts of the flower, the inside of the flower, the various. These are also the years of Linnaeus, right? 17 end of 1700. They are the Linnaeus, so the moral classification. So. They were kind of classifying the stem and the pistil, the seeds, depicting all these parts of the flowers very, very accurately. They have a very accurate scientific approach to this, right? To the study of plants. All right, so now we go for this flower here, right? You know, a couple more and more. But so you see how important it is, the dilution, right? The dilution and the pigment concentration, right? So you see also, if I put too much paint in here, I lift the paint and the brush now becomes a sponge. I take off paint, see that? And there you go, right? You see how I'm aiming, what I'm aiming here is for this color here. See that? Because then later I'm going to put other colors on top, gradually over it, right? Make sense? So we're practicing now the washes, right? We're practicing the washes. Let's practice the one more time here, and then we start going over it again. All right.